Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to rank all of the characters from The White Lotus Season 1. For starters, I thought in general all the characters were pretty flawed. And I think that that's what I liked about it. It reminded me of Californication in that way. If you guys have ever seen that show, all the characters are flawed. All of them have something that they did that was really, really wrong, or at least something that you're like, ooh, I don't know about that. Like that was, but that's what's cool is that like these feel more like real people for the most part. Their decision making. And so let's get started. First off, we have the D tier. I should have come up with fun titles, shouldn't I? Dang it. Okay, I promise for seasons 2 and 3, I will come up with tier titles, because that's what I usually do. Stupid. Anyways, the worst character of the whole season was obviously Shane, aka Plop from The Office. I know that he's probably not like this character in real life, but he did such a good job at playing what is essentially probably one of the worst people I have ever seen on a TV show. And he was so good, like I looked forward to seeing him, even though I knew he was going to be a piece of shit. I knew he was going to do something bad. I knew that he was going to act horrible to his new wife. I looked forward to seeing him because he did such a good job. And I just wanted that moment, where his wife finally said, F you, bye. But then also, the interesting thing about his character, and this is the thing that I almost wish I ranked him higher. Dang, I should have done that too. Because he did have little cracks. Like, he did have little cracks in the stereotype, where he was more of a well-rounded character. Like the part where his new wife is like, I don't want to be a trophy wife. I don't want to be this thing. And he's like, you don't have to be. I'm not telling you have to be anything. You can be whatever you want. But then there's other moments where, she said that she wanted to take that job. And then he basically was like, F you, don't do that. Which, honestly, I wouldn't take a job on my honeymoon at all. I don't think I'd even take a call unless it was like, oh, congratulations. Okay, thank you. Bye. And so, but this character, he was a huge piece of shit. He was pretty evil. And, I don't know though. I think that the finale was a bit of a letdown. I kind of wish that they went harder with the whole rivalry between him and Armand, because I think that could have been a better last 2 episodes, was like amping up what they built off of in episode 4. In episode 4 at the very end, it kind of felt like, okay, this is going to be the plot now. But instead, it was just kind of like, he's just going to call and get him fired. That's kind of it. And then Armand, in retaliation, he's just going to take a shit in his luggage. That's it. So next up is Sydney Sweeney's character. In general, I have a hard time liking Sydney Sweeney in anything that she's in. She's pretty, I mean... She's a very beautiful young woman, but her character is so unlikable. The way that she treats her brother, the way that she talks, she's dumb. She's a brain-dead blonde. And what's interesting is that she is like the perfect caricature of like a young feminazi. And so she really actually, even though I don't usually like her characters, she did a really good job playing this character. And once again, like, I don't think she's like that in real life. I hope not. But, like, this character is just awful person. she wasn't like the worst though. Like, I mean, she was basically just kind of like a rebel. And, at the end, her friend, she's like, you try to come off like you're this rebel and you're so different, but you're not. You're gonna be your parents one day. And I think that was honestly, if it wasn't so racist, the way that she said it, that would have been like the perfect thing to say to her character. Because that's the funny reality of like a character like her, is that she doesn't, fight her whole life and remain this strong, independent. No, she's going to become just like her mom. And so that's the funny thing. It's like, it's a phase, this whole feminazi thing, and her character completely embodies that. But just, I really hated how she treated her brother, and then I hated how, I thought it was so queer and creepy when she was spying on her friend, getting intimate with Kai, the hotel worker. Like, I thought that was so weird. And it was, I was like, what are you doing? Like, and other people said this too. It was almost like she had a crush on her friend. It was almost like she was really, really secretly, but no. It was just like she was weird, and she wanted to have Kai just like her friend did. So next up, speaking of Sydney Sweeney's friend, next up is Sydney Sweeney's friend. I wish I could have remembered their names, but I really don't. This girl, she's really pretty too. She's got very thick eyebrows, and they really actually work to her benefit. They look really, really nice. And, I'm sure that she's probably a nice person in real life. And I want to say that because I don't want to seem like I'm shitting on the actors or anything personally. Because usually what I found, is that people who play good characters or people who only like to play good characters, they're usually the ones in real life that you got to watch out for, because they're the narcissists. They're the ones who want to always be seen as perfect on screen. And it's like this, it's basically like they treat like movies and TV like they're making social media posts. Like, oh, I'm posting a picture of myself, I'm doing this role. And to me, like, that's usually the case. So, this girl's probably really nice in real life, because usually the guys who play the villains all the time, they're usually the nicer people in real life. Like Christopher Lee, Dracula, he was pretty cool. I met Sid Haig, who was in The Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses. He was awesome. So yeah, but anyways, that's off topic, way off topic. But this character, I thought that she was okay at first. Like, she kind of just was another bully. She was kind of like a follower in bullying the girl's brother. And then also she kind of just sat there a lot of the time staring into space, and you just sit there staring at her pretty face, and it's like that's basically all she was for a lot of the season. And then she gets into this little relationship, and that's where her character really went downhill for me, because at that point her ulterior persona comes up. She's like a vile racist. She's so racist against white people, it's not even funny. And she she encourages her new boyfriend to steal from this family that took her on this vacation, which is so funny because, she talks about how, like, I don't like how the native Hawaiians did this dance for the guests of the hotel at dinner, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, you're fulfilling, like, a stereotype, too. Like, the stereotype of, like, well, I don't want to necessarily say it, but that stealing, how you always have the white people thinking that, like, okay. But you guys know what I mean. Like, you saw that in Crash, where Sandra Bullock thought that Lewis guy was going to steal, blah, blah, blah. And, well, she actually is like, hey, that's a really good idea. Just steal, because they're not going to care. They're not going to notice. Like, it's just, you can just do whatever you want because, white people bad. And then, of course, at the end, she says to Sydney Sweeney, you're going to be just like your parents because white people bad. And it's like, you're really bad. Like, and it's funny because she does kind of feel bad about the whole situation that happens where her boyfriend... Well, and that's another thing, too. Usually in these vacation movies and shows, whenever people fall in love, it's like they want to stay with the person that they fell in love with. But in this case, she just kind of drops him. And it doesn't... Because she was going to drop him before she told him to steal. So she broke up with him, this guy who fell head over heels in love with this girl. And then she's like, oh yeah, what would be a really good idea? What if you fulfilled like a really racist stereotype and you went upstairs and you stole from the family that took me on this vacation? Like, what a smart idea. Because she was trying to, quote unquote, help him. It just stupid behavior. And so I really didn't like her character. And it's sad because she's very, very pretty. She's very pretty. And she was also in the Black Christmas remake, which is another red flag, though. So anyways, next up is Shane's mom. This character was all too real for me because I met a person who was exactly like this woman, like this character. I have met someone who looks and acts exactly like her character, except for the rich part, except for the part about being like a rich trophy wife type of thing. But the personality, the look, I've seen it in real life. And I think my main issue with this character is that when she first arrives and Armand is like, hey, I brought you your mother. Here's your new surprise. I brought her anyway, even though you said fuck you. And I was like, that is so, like, Armand is so awesome, and he is so based and hilarious. I mean, that was like the perfect, like, just complete, like, hey, mama's boy, I brought your mother all the way over here to Hawaii on vacation with you. The problem is, though, it kind of feels like a joke that kind of overstays its welcome, because nothing ever really happens with her other than she has a talk with Alexandria's character, and it helps her realize that, like, oh, this is going to be my life now, and it's like something that I didn't want, which we'll talk more about that later. But I just didn't really feel like she was a great, fully fleshed out character. Next up, this guy is probably the dullest character on the whole show. He is the hotel worker that Armand eats him out in his office. He was just really dull. I felt like this actor, he was on Fargo season 5. He was terrible in that too. But then I saw him in the new movie Companion, and I thought that he did a really good job in that. So it sucks that he gets these roles where he's just kind of like the boy toy character, because I did actually think in the third episode when he takes out all the people on the boat, I thought that was really good with him. I thought that he was pretty good there. He was funny, and but you didn't really get very much more depth from him. You didn't really get very much more meat. Okay, that was a weird thing to say, but you know what I mean, like meat and potatoes. Like, he was very, very flat as a character. Now for the C tier. First off, we have Greg. I know that Greg comes back for season 2, which actually, it's funny because all I did was look up an interview for a cast member from season 1, and I immediately saw another video title that spoiled season 2. So, RIP to not wanting to be spoiled, I guess. But Greg, I really didn't like his character. Like, the whole BLM joke was funny. You know, like Jennifer Coolidge thought that he worked for Black Lives Matter, and he really worked for the Bureau of Land Management. But other than that, his character was really, really just kind of weak. And I just really hated how he came in and he stole that relationship away from Belinda. You know, that really good on-screen relationship where, you know, it's basically like Belinda was like doing all these favors and really like cozying up to this other character so that she could help her start her own business. But as soon as Greg comes in, he basically drives a wedge between them. And I know that obviously he was good for Jennifer Coolidge, at least at this point. And they had a okay relationship, like a typical relationship that a character of hers would have. But he was just really boring to me. Next up is Kai. He was kind of an okay character. I wish that he had gotten more development. I wish that he got more development too. I felt like he was kind of like a plot object for the whole story of the parents of the Mossbachers kind of getting over their little conflict, you know, because at the end, you know, I guess he turned himself in off screen after he went through, because he didn't even want to steal. He said, you know, 2 wrongs don't make a right, and or something like to that effect. You know, he didn't even want to go through with this plan, and then he did anyway, and it all turned out badly, as it often does. Crime does not pay, and it just completely went wrong, and you really felt sorry for his character because, you know, he went into this situation thinking, you know, I'm just gonna get to come in here and do what I want, and it's not gonna be a big deal. But then it became a big deal, and everyone liked him, and it just, she ruined his life. That girl, she ruined this guy's life because she, you know, I don't know, she's an idiot, and so I really felt bad for him, and I really hated that we didn't get to see him after he turned himself in. I felt like. I don't know. I guess nothing's perfect. Nothing can be perfect. But I just really, I really, really like his character. Besides him and Armand, they both got the most dirty done to them out of all the characters in the season. Next up is B. And this one character is Lena. She is the trainee in the first episode. I thought that she was really good, and she was a great, like, introductory character, which was basically like an audience vehicle character, so that we could see the hotel through her eyes and see how it would be like to work there through her eyes. And of course, she was pregnant, and she gave birth at the end of the first episode. We never saw her again, though, and I felt like I was kind of sad about that. I know, obviously, she would probably have maternity leave and she would be away anyway because her boss was basically ignoring her and basically couldn't even tell that she was pregnant and about to give birth, and that was pretty bad. But I really wish we could have seen her more because she seemed like she could have been a good character, and I would have loved to have seen how she interacted with other characters. Like, how would she have acted with Shane? And how would she have continued to act with Jennifer Coolidge's character or with Armand? You know, like, would she have been able to kind of help Armand with his addiction problem and try to console him or something? You know, like anything. Like, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened, you know? Now for the A tier, Alexandria Daddario's character. It sucks that I don't remember any of these names. By the way, hardly any of these names. But her character, she was a doormat, and you really felt sorry for her because she just had no voice. She was so weak. She wouldn't stand up for herself. And it got so kind of dark with how much like she would put up with, and how she's just kind of like, whatever. Like, you know, she did such a good job too. Like, I've never really liked her as an actress. I don't think that she's very pretty either. I mean, she's not really my type. But, you know, she did a really good job in this role. And I thought that she gave like an A-plus performance. She did have a couple of things about her that I didn't like. You know, obviously, she's a terrible journalist, which was a quote one point from the show. But I hated how at the end she breaks up with Shane, but then she gets back with him at the very end. I didn't like that at all. I thought that was a complete waste of time, that whole story, if she was going to break up with him and then get back with him anyways. Especially because they tried to make it seem like, oh, maybe he changed. Maybe he changed a little bit. He didn't change. But somehow she got fooled again. She got fooled more times than George W. Bush ever did. No, I'm just kidding about that. But anyways, I'm trying to think if there's anything else about her character that I liked. No, not really. I will say, like, I think that the saddest moment of her whole story is in the finale. She's sitting in her room, her new room, talking with Belinda. And, this is something that I would say. The first room that her and Shane were staying in, it was so much better than the Pineapple Suite. It looked like such a great room, and it looked so much better. And that Pineapple Suite looked like, it didn't look very good. It looked kind of boring. So I thought that whole, he made such a big deal about, we're not in the right room, you know, but it's like, I think that the room that they originally got was better. But anyways, I love the moment where she was asking Belinda for advice, and she just poured her heart out to her. And Belinda, I think that her character, like, we could all empathize with her at this point. Like, she has just, like, had to put up with so much and hear all these stories and deal with all these people that come to her like, poor me, come listen to my story. And she was like, I'm all out of advice. And then she just gets up and leaves. I thought that was really good. That was one of my favorite things about the season. I thought that was such a... But it was also so sad at the same time, because because at this point you didn't know who was going to die. And I thought, okay, this is it for Alexandria's character. Like, that was the final nail in the coffin. But no, it wasn't. So, you know, whatever. Next up is Jennifer Coolidge's character, Stifler's mom. This character, it's funny because she comes on screen and you think that she's just going to be Stifler's mom. You think that she's going to be really boring and just kind of like, we've seen this before. But she's hilarious, and she does such a good job. And it's just so funny because, like, again, like, people aren't perfect. And she really shows, like, the typical stereotype of, like, that woman that overshares, that it gets really, really crazy in public and makes a scene and all that. And so I love just watching characters have to put up with her and have to be polite and nice, because she did come here to spread her mother's ashes. And I love the part where she's on the boat. I just love... that was probably my favorite episode, or my second favorite. I loved how Armand was like, okay, I'm going to fuck Shane's vacation up, and I'm going to put him on the boat with this woman who is going to go crazy. And she even told him, she's like, I'm going to be really emotional this evening, just so you know. Can we have alcohol on the boat? And I thought that was great. So she was really funny. The only thing that I'll say is that I really didn't like the whole romance between her and Greg. I guess I liked the part where she has this big tantrum in front of him, and she gets really like upset and kind of just like, because I think that we can all relate to this too, of where you think that you'll get into a relationship with someone and then they just disappoint you and they leave. And it's like this big, like, oh, what happened? Like, I thought everything was working out so well. And that disappointment leads to thinking, like, oh, that's what every relationship is going to be like. Like, so might as well, like, leave now. Because, like, nobody's ever going to stay. And so that, I actually really liked that scene, too. I really felt for her character, which is another thing that I didn't expect. And then at the end, I felt really bad for Belinda again because, she just gave her some money. She basically said, no, I'm not going to help you with your business. I have to think about it, quote unquote. And I thought, God, after all Belinda has put up with, like, that was so sad. But anyways, next up are the parents in the Mossbacher family. I gotta be honest, I know that it probably says something about me, but I thought that these two characters said some of the most based things in TV history, modern TV history. You have Steve Zahn, you have the woman from American Horror Story, Murder House, the mom, and I've never really liked her before as an actor. Like, I've never really liked any of the characters she's played. I've loved her character in this show. Basically, her big flaw was that she was a workaholic. But other than that, she was so good in dealing with her daughter and with firing back against whatever like social justice bullshit that she would spew. And then there's also a point where she fires back against Alexandria's character because she wrote this terrible article. And so, like, she was really actually pretty cool. And I really loved the story between her and Steve Zahn, where, they apparently he had an affair. He had to make it up to her. It was this big thing, and he bought her these bracelets. And I really loved that little romance, that little relationship story, and how they made up and everything. But just also showing how, like, cheating, how it can still affect people years and years and years and years later. Not to just treat like this stuff like, oh, it happens all the time, just because it's a modern thing, like, oh, whatever, it's modern society. It's like, no, like, this is not okay. Something like that is not okay. And I love that they acknowledge that, and that Steve Zahn's character, he still feels guilty about it. There's the whole thing with his dad. The one thing that I'll say is that by the finale, the parents kind of become a little bit like background characters because the other characters really take center stage, and I think that they got a little less likable in the finale. But other than that, I love their characters. I'm trying to think of my favorite moment with Steve Zahn's character, because he was basically like the dad in Diary of a Wimpy Kid again in this show. But he had a lot of funny moments. And I would just say in general, like, he is so likable. Oh yeah, I remember my favorite moment. There's this part where they're having dinner. I think it might have been their last dinner, and or maybe their second to last. I can't remember, but that's another thing that I loved about the show. By the way, is that every episode had a dinner scene in it, because it was basically every episode was like a day of the week, So I love that because I love dinner scenes. I think that they can lead to some really good character moments and really funny situations. And there's this part where like he's just ranting and raving against like the whole like colonialism issue that like people like to talk about nowadays, only about one culture of people committing it. They never really talk about like all the other cultures and all the other societies that committed it. They only talk about the one. And he had some really, really good things to say about it. Really funny as well. And definitely both him and the mom were kind of like old-fashioned, but still really, really funny and kind of youthful. And I love that. I love that all the characters on this show, you thought that they were going to be these stereotypes, and they fought against that. They showed you something different, you know? Now we're in the S tier. First off is Quinn. I just felt so horrible for him the whole season. He had the worst vacation. You know, like his sister bullies him and treats him terribly. He had to sleep in the kitchen, this tiny little room. And it was horrible. And then he lost his phone. He lost his game system. And I was so glad that he went through this character journey where he appreciated nature and he appreciated seeing dolphins and all that, the sunsets, sunrises. And then finally he joined this canoe team, this paddling team, and it gave him a purpose. And I just thought that was so cool. The thing that I didn't like, though, was the fact that I thought that in the finale they kind of failed him, because there wasn't any discussion of like, okay, he doesn't have any money, he doesn't have any place to stay, so what's he gonna do? You know? Like, they never even talked about that. So I think that was a big flaw. And I also think in real life, you know, he was 16, his character. And so in real life, you know, his parents would have gotten him back somehow. You know, he couldn't just run off like that, you know. But I didn't blame him because his sister hated him and his parents kind of treated him like an outcast, kind of. And it never really felt like he mattered in the family. It kind of just felt like he was like the other kid. Anyways, the number second best character is Belinda, the head of the spa. I know that she is in every season, and I am glad that she is in every season because she is such a funny and yet such an interesting and good character. I just loved her whole story with Jennifer Coolidge, and I loved how at first it was like you really felt bad. You're like, oh shit, she has to put up with this biatch now for the whole season, and it's hilarious watching her like navigate these situations and like having to put up with her. But then what's really cool is that they actually become really good friends, or so it seems. And you really want Belinda to succeed, and you want her to get what she needs from this woman, this other woman, which is she promised to help her start her own business. And so she basically butters Jennifer Coolidge up the whole season. And you really wanted that to work out. And so it was really sad in the finale that it didn't. It just, she got some money. She got a big tip, basically. And yeah, but we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see what happens in season 2. But yeah, I loved her character. I thought that she was a great character. And then the number one best character of the show is Armand. He was the driving force of the show. Because he introduced you to the whole world, talking about how the hotel workers are supposed to be. And it was so funny because he starts off by saying, we have to be as impersonal as possible. They can barely know that we're here, but they like it that way. And, you know, rich people are like children. They are like children, and we have to treat them like children. And he was so funny and so cool. But what was really funny was that he didn't even follow his own rules. He was a big hypocrite. You know, like he stole guests' property, you know, even though it was drugs. He stole that, and he started taking them for himself, which included prescription drugs for panic attacks. That was really bad. I didn't like that. I thought that that was a bad thing to do. And, you know, he got so personal. Like, he was offering to have sex with Steve Zahn's character, and he was purposefully fucking up Shane's honeymoon. And there's just so many things. He brought in Shane's mother. Like, he didn't, like, remain this impersonal, like, oh, I'm just the manager. He interfered with everyone and everything. But that's what I loved about him, was that he was so involved with the characters in the show, and the way that he orchestrated things was really funny. I also didn't like the story where he gets into an affair with one of his employees, because I just kind of felt like it was like a shock value thing. Like, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, we're going to have this really funny part where you see he's eating out this other guy, and it's like, yeah, whatever. Like, it'd be one thing if, like, maybe they had, like, an actual relationship where, like, maybe they got to know each other or something, because you really kind of felt bad for him in the beginning, because he didn't recognize that his new trainee employee was pregnant. He just thought that she was chunky or something. That's what he said. And so maybe from that, he would be like, okay, I want to get to know my employees better. I want to get to see them as people, which, again, it's like this whole thing of like, oh, we're all going to be impersonal and nobody's going to know anything about us. Wink, wink. And that does not happen, you know, at all. And I really hated that he got killed in the end, too, because it seemed like he just went off the deep end. And the whole season was essentially like The Shining for his character, you know, where he got onto this self-destructive path that there was no coming back from unless he had like a big intervention. So anyways, I loved his character. I thought that he was really funny. I loved it when he orchestrated the stuff with Shane and his wife in episode 3. That was probably my favorite moment of his. And so anyways, please like this video and comment. Tell me, what did you think about the characters? I know that they're all pretty much bad people, except for, I would say, Quinn and Belinda. And then, yeah. I mean, Steve Zahn's character... Oh, actually, yeah, the cheating thing. Yeah, that's bad. Never mind. And so, yeah, please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more White Lotus videos, because I am late to the party on this show. I really regret not watching this show when it first came out. So I am catching up. I am being a good reviewer, and I will have reviews out for seasons 2 and 3 in the near future. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.